Today on Multiverse News, we're going to look back at the year that was 2023. What is our top 5 movies and top 5 TV shows for all 4 of our regular co-hosts here? So we're gonna do this thing. We'll be right back. Welcome to Multiverse News, your source for information about all your favorite fictional universes. But today, we're going to be talking about what we liked this year in review, as it were, as they say. Sorry, my name's Matthew Carroll, and we got who all we got with us today? We got J. Scotty St. Clair from Animation Deliberation. What's up, J. Scotty?
Hey, happy holidays, everyone! Excited to be here.
Yeah, and Haley Hobbs from Source Pages. What's up, Haley Hobbs?
Likewise, 'tis the holiday season, so we get to talk about cool stuff.
Indeed. And Jay Sisson from Commute the Podcast. What's up, Jay?
Yeah, happy to be here during this holiday season.
Indeed. So it's the end of 2023. We're going to all talk about our favorites, and we each made a list of top 5 for TV and for movies. I feel like we need to just dive right in.
Sounds good. No time like the present.
Yeah.
Who wants to kick it off with their number 5 for, let's say, TV? Let's go TV.
I'll go first.
Sounds good.
All right. Only Murders in the Building season 3 is my number 5.
Ooh,
excellent
choice.
Pick.
I heard great things, and I fell off in season 2, so I'm glad it's continued to be good.
That's a fair, season 2 wasn't that great. And this one kind of went up and down, but it ended in a good way. I liked it.
Awesome.
It's not on my list, but Steve Martin was given the opportunity to deliver some outstanding comedy this season,
Yes.
I will say.
That's awesome. What about you, Jay Scotty?
All right, coming in at number 5 for me is one I expect to appear on everyone's list, but probably in a little bit of a higher spot. It's Loki season 2.
That is my number 5 too.
Interesting.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm number 3 with Loki.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, Loki's going to be my number 2.
Okay, well, given that it's the highest on your list, I'll let you take it away. I won't steal your thunder.
I love the MCU, obviously. I love talking about it, and Loki was my favorite series last year, and it has become, it was this year again, and they landed the plane, as they say, just absolutely perfectly, and I really, really love season 2. It got mythological. It just got amazing, and the characters were deep, but it dealt with themes that touched everyone, and I just really, really loved it.
Yeah, it did something to me that the MCU hasn't done in a long time, which is made me really deeply care about the characters on a different level. I've always cared about the characters, but once the original characters that had spent so long getting built up in the universe were gone, I didn't feel that as much for the new characters. There was definitely room for that to happen eventually, but I hadn't been emotionally moved in a little bit since in the MCU, probably since, I guess, Spider-Man No Way Home, maybe. And after watching this, a few, especially the last 2 episodes, really hit with me in the right place. So yeah, it was an easy shoe-in for the top 5 for sure.
Okay, so that takes care of everybody's 5, but mine. My number 5 was Star Trek: Strange New Worlds. It's Star Trek's going to make my list, and
For sure.
I did not think this would be the one that would be number 5 on my list, because this year they did the finale of Picard, which was a big epic series with all these casts returning, and it was good, but it was lacking in some major ways. That Strange New Worlds had multiple episodes that felt like they are why I watch Star Trek. They just had really cool, deep lore connections combined with amazing standalone storytelling. So I just absolutely loved this season, particularly of Strange New Worlds. It's season 2, and it's just that show's really finding its footing. What about number 4? Haley?
Back to me. All right.
It's back to you, I guess.
So thankfully, I finally, 15 minutes ago, figured out what Scotty wanted me to connect with him about.
Okay,
And number 4 is Bad Batch Season 2. Was I right, Scotty?
You nailed it. I
didn't let you down.
knew I
Thank
was
goodness.
not, wrong placing my faith in you. Good job.
It didn't make your list, Jay Scotty?
Unfortunately, it could not make the cut, so I relied on Haley to represent the tech love.
And here I am to represent. Bad Batch is just an off-the-charts great animated Star Wars show, and I think season 3 that they've confirmed might end up being the last for it, but it's been a really cool world building experience for the clones. If you liked the Clone Wars show, then you're getting more of that, and in an updated animation style. Great scoring, great sound, great everything. It's a great show.
Awesome. I said it better myself.
What about you, Jay Scotty? What's your number 4?
Yeah, appropriately at number 4, I have Succession season 4, and given the recent Golden Globe nominations here, I think for good reason. This was a very popular show, highly anticipated being the final season, and it's just a show that fires on all cylinders for me. It's interesting because on paper, like a show about corrupt and spoiled, like rich white people vying for power, like that doesn't really like interest me, but the Shakespearean nature and the
what
performances.
Are you talking about? That's Game of Thrones.
Exactly, right? Yeah. And I'll try to avoid spoilers here, but the departure of like a certain character like early on in the season like really like shook things up and like kept me on my toes and guessing, and even with the final scene, like I didn't know what to expect, and it just really resonated. So that was a show that went out at the right time, and a lot of shows, they go on too long, especially when they're really popular. But this is a show that knew where it wanted to go and ended on the right note.
Yeah, I got 100%. Succession all the way up at number 2, so I'm with you on that one.
Wow.
I feel like it was the show that we'll remember the most probably from this past year, and with good reason. Like I feel like it really nailed it, just at the right time in the culture. Like people were talking about it, people were jumping on it in the last seasons. It really took off to new heights, and it stuck the landing. I mean, it didn't falter at all. It only got better and better as it went on. So yeah, it's probably when I think back to 2023, like I have one ahead of it, but like that's probably going to be the first show that comes to mind.
Yeah, that's my number 4 as well. And there's a moment, there's a big event that happens in the final season about right at the very end that just makes it, I don't know, it makes the show so much more poignant in like a real life way, not just this like, I don't know. It really hit me hard. I loved it. And it was one of those week to week, just thick, deep show with like lots of character building. Stop smiling at thick and deep.
Sorry. My mind is forever in the gutter.
On Christmas too. Come on now.
Okay. Always.
It's Boxing Day, right? Like right after Christmas. Damn, the box. Okay. No, I guess. Jay, did you have a 4?
Yeah, at 4, I have Prime's Gen V. I felt like that show, I was worried about a Boys spinoff because I felt like The Boys just does something that no other show does. It makes commentary that no other show can, and it does it on a really deep and emotional and like political and social and cultural level. And so when the spinoff was announced, I kind of was very hesitant about it. I didn't think that was the right move for that franchise. But I went into it with an open mind, and I left Gen V saying like that did it with the Boys. Like it took step for step with it. It developed characters in the same way. It really opened up the universe in some really interesting ways. So it really stood out to me. I'm excited to see more of it. I mean, I think it convinced me that it needs to exist by the end of the season, which is what a good spinoff should do.
In today's world of like crazy amounts of content, that's what every show has to do. Like you just like so many shows are cookie cutter like every other show, and so if you can convince me you deserve to exist in this marketplace, then like yeah, it's a good thing.
Wasn't that kind of the concept of the show? Wasn't it like a contest between like the college graduates? I didn't watch it all the way through, but I caught the first couple of episodes, and like that's the pitch, wasn't it? So yeah, it's kind of interesting that the meta commentary around it is
yeah. Yeah, and as it goes on, it does connect in these very large ways to the rest of the universe, and not in a gimmicky way, but in like a really real way. It's really well done.
Yeah, totally. I agree with that completely. It was on my list for a little bit. It got scooched off.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Haley, what you got on number 3?
Loki was my number 3.
Oh, okay. Oh, Jay Scotty, do you still have a number 3?
I do. At number 3, I've got my only animated entry, I'm sorry to report, but it is Scott Pilgrim Takes Off. And this was a show that, from the announcement, knowing that the original voice cast from the Edgar Wright film, they were all returning. And the first time we saw the trailer, seeing that it was kind of hearkening back to the graphic novel style, but also combining it with anime. And then when we finally got the series, it took some unexpected zigs and zags, but I think it really paid off in the end. And it was just a beautiful experience all the way through. And it was one of the few shows that, like, in this culture of binging, I really felt compelled to watch one episode after the next. And from what I've heard, it doesn't really sound like Netflix has plans to continue this series, but I am perfectly okay with that. This is just a nice little present that I can enjoy on its own, and I look forward to revisiting it and seeing how it just operates so well as a companion piece to that beloved Edgar Wright film.
That's awesome. I feel embarrassed because I didn't even realize that had come out yet. Good Lord. There's too much content and life's too crazy right now. Jay, have you said your 3 yet?
No. At 3, I have Beef on Netflix. I was really moved by this show. It was hilarious in spots, and it said so much about just purpose and identity. The characters are really well developed. It deals with the basic premise of the show. The 2 characters are played by Ali Wong and Steven Yeun, and these 2 characters enter into this conflict with one another after just a very simple road rage incident, but it just grows and grows and grows, and they continually have this just escalating feud between the 2. But it just, as it goes, it develops both of their backstories. They live on these very opposite ends of the socioeconomic spectrum, and it fleshes out kind of their relationship dynamics that they're having, the problems that they're having, and how all of that's compiling into this just anger. And I think it's a great show on the level of speaking of how we deal with anger and how our society deals with problems. And I felt like it really spoke to me. I really liked the way that it ended. I felt like the last little bit of it was some of the best last 2 minutes of television that I've seen in a long time. That last couple minutes to wrap everything up. And I'd highly recommend it to anyone looking for just a one-off series on Netflix. It moves with a good pace, and it was definitely going to be in the top 5 somewhere.
It's awesome. Keep hearing great things about that show. I've seen the first episode and really liked it, but I just didn't finish it up.
It's on the list.
On the list. Okay, that's our 3s. How about number 2s? Do we have any 2s left?
I have a 2.
Haley.
Go for it. I also have a 2, but go for it.
Yeah, okay. My 2 is Lessons in Chemistry on Apple TV Plus, which was Brie Larson giving, I think, one of her very best performances in a show that I know she felt extremely passionate about doing, and it showed. The production quality was just amazing. Had a great supporting cast based on the book by Bonnie Garmis that I read this year that I also really, really loved. So I think that when we watch things that are adapted like that, you obviously tend to get your expectations a little high, but mine were just completely met with that show. It was amazing.
Awesome. Oh, I skipped my 3. Sorry. Oh. Ahsoka was my 3.
Nice.
Ahsoka is my 1.
Nice. Well, you say what you have to say about Ahsoka then.
It's my favorite Star Wars character and the best Star Wars show and everything. We don't have enough time for me to talk about Ahsoka that much. And if you want to hear me talk a lot about Ahsoka, you can go listen on PandaVision.
Yeah.
You can talk about Ahsoka, Matt.
All right. Well, I dabbled in a little PandaVision over there too, but Ahsoka was a show that made me care about Star Wars the way that I haven't really ever. So I really liked it. It really intrigued me. I think it has its flaws, but it is a really, really, it just, the experience of that show was on a similar level to Loki for me, where every week I was just excited about it dropping and excited about the conversation around it and what it all means and blah, the same way we were doing with Loki. So I just, it's hard for anything to do that to me that's not in the MCU basically. And so it was just a really, really fun time.
Yeah, didn't make my list, but I did enjoy it thoroughly. All right, so I guess I'll knock out my number 2, which is also an Apple TV Plus entry, and it's Silo, starring Rebecca Ferguson, and her involvement alone was the initial reason I checked it out. And wow, like what an incredible show! The world building, the mystery that it takes you on, and the fact that we're getting a season 2 just like makes me really excited to be invested in this world. And it's one of those shows that, you know, for personal reasons as well, me and my dad were kind of able to bond over this show. We watched it together, and he actually liked it so much that he went out and got the whole entire book series it was based on and like read all of those. So if you have Apple, you know, TV Plus and are looking for a show to check out, there's a lot of good ones, but I highly recommend Silo.
Yeah, if I could expand my list, that would have been like 6 or 7. I was trying to find a way to get it into the top 5,
Sure.
so I'm right there with you. It's a great show.
So that leaves our number ones, right? And Haley, you've already said Ahsoka. I'm really curious how if the other three of us line up on our number one, or what's the number one here?
I have a feeling we all have the same number one.
I have a feeling too.
Really?
Jay Scotty, what's your number one? Maybe not. I don't know.
I think I know. I think you two have the same number one,
Yeah.
and it was definitely in contention for me. But when I had to think about like the overall impact, and it's a show that's still currently airing. We've only had 5 episodes so far, but it is Fargo, and it again just 5 episodes in. Noah Hawley just has this ability to just, from the cinematography to the writing to the characters, I am just locked in, and I look forward to it so much. And I'm sad at the end of every episode each week that I don't have more to watch. So hopefully the season ends on a high note, but I have a hard time imagining a scenario where I don't end up thoroughly enjoying Fargo.
It's cool.
These shows I don't get a chance to watch for whatever reason, this business of life, like Fargo. I will catch up because I love Fargo.
Sure.
But it makes me realize how much I mark time by like being excited about the next week's episode of whatever the thing is I'm into at that moment. Like, whatever it was, as we said, Ahsoka, it was Loki. But since I feel like just like a week ago, you asked me, did I want to cover Fargo? And I was like, I don't think I have time.
Right.
And then it's 5 weeks in already. I'm like, this show has already, good Lord. It just seems like time just breezes by. And I do think like stopping and watching these stories like gives me this outlet of like slowing down and thinking about things in a different way. Anyway, that's not really here nor there because we're in a time crunch. Jay, what did you have in your top place? I think we might line up.
Yeah, I put The Last of Us at number 1. This was easy. Yeah, that's where I started. I started at number 1 with The Last of Us just on a personal level. I played the video game back in the day, and I was just really affected by it. The story and just the world building and the story that they told in that video game was one of the most was one of the best experiences I've had playing through a story in that format. And so whenever a series was announced, I was a little kind of hesitant just because Hollywood does not have a great history with video game adaptations. But this blew it out of the water. I mean, it brought the emotion on heavy levels. It adapted these characters that are beloved in unique ways. The talent behind it with Bella Ramsey and Pedro Pascal taking the lead on the show were just perfectly cast. The world building was great, and I can't say enough good things about it. I mean, I think like every week it just unboxed something new and something interesting and emotional and heavy, and then the next week it did it all over again. I don't think there's a bad episode in the series. And speaking as somebody who has played the second game, and obviously I won't say a word about what that means for the future, but I think the source material in the second game is just as strong, if not stronger, as the first one. And so I think this show probably has at least a couple more seasons. That second game is a lot bigger than the first game, so I think we'll probably see more seasons of this show. And I say bring it on. Like that show is on the rise, and to me, like when I think of watching TV in 2023, like that show is always going to come back. So if you want to hear, I mean, I'm not going to keep rambling. If you want to hear me talk about it for about 9 hours, you can go back on PandaVision. And, Matt and I broke that show down weekly as it came out. That's number 1 for me. No question.
Yep. I'm right there with you. And it was hard between that and Loki for me because Loki holds a very personal place in my heart too. But it's just the level of quality and level of just intense, and the ability to bring me to that place of feeling so deeply for a show when it is just a one-off, first season, not a one-off, but a first season. And I have not played the games except for a very little bit, and I still was just completely in. And one of the things you were talking about, unboxing things, like they also departed greatly from the games at places and told completely new stories that they like sort of developed and invented there, and like it was just, they did a good job. All the people who did play the video games that I talked to were like, oh yeah, the changes they made the thing better. Like they actually added things that were additive and not just like to make it more Hollywood or to make it more palatable or something. It was really, really, really an amazingly done show. So that's our top. That's our top, guys. I feel like we need to like do some math and figure out, like we do on MCU Cast, and figure out what our awards are for Multiverse News.
I think Loki might take the cake.
Yeah, Loki was the one that we all had across the board, so that's number one, right?
Yeah,
very likely.
Yeah, sounds like Loki, Last of Us, Succession. Yeah, Ahsoka appeared a couple times.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And Jay, you brought some of our patrons sent in their top 5 lists. So you want to read off those top 5 in the TV categories?
Yeah, we asked our patrons, patreon.com/multiverse newscast, if you want to get involved there and get a voice on the show every once in a while. We asked our patrons to throw out a few of their favorite shows and favorite movies from 2023. So let's check in on their shows real quick. We had David Brewer. He said at 5, Gamera Rebirth. I'm not sure what that is. 4, One Piece Netflix live action, which a lot of people liked. 3, cool. My Adventures with Superman, which is something I know you love, Scotty. Loki season 2 at 2, and then Ahsoka at 1. We had list. Jordan Boyd. Jordan Boyd came in and said Loki season 2 at 5, then My Adventures with Superman at 4, Gen V at 3, Last of Us at 2, and then Blue Eye Samurai at 1. So a lot of common DNA there.
Okay.
And lastly, we have Niche, and he threw in his shows and movies all into a top 5, but shows, he had Succession in there, he had The Last of Us and Loki in there. So sounds like we're in lockstep with a lot of the patrons. A lot of Loki, a lot of Last of Us, a lot of Succession, same type of thing.
Yeah, but I also like to hear those ones that are not, like we didn't have One Piece on our list, but I had a lot about that this year.
For sure.
Yeah. Grateful to the Patreons for picking up my slack on My Adventures with Superman, for sure.
We're all just covering your ass over here, Scotty.
I need that. You got to keep me in line here.
Okay, well, let's dive into the movies.
Yeah.
We can go the same order again. Haley, what do you got? Movie?
My number 5 is The Marvels. I thought it was the best Marvel movie that came out this year, and I realize that is a highly controversial statement, but when I went to see that movie and I got to sit there and have just a really good time watching it and enjoying it, and it was funny and fun and set up some major cool things for the future of the MCU, then that's the reason it's my number 1 MCU movie, and that's the reason it's number 5 on my list.
Awesome. Jay Scotty.
I got to provide a quick caveat and say, like, we decided to do top 5s here, but, I could have easily done a top 10. So I felt the pressure on this one a little bit more so than with the TV shows. I had to get rid of some darlings here, and The Marvels, is a great mention. I enjoyed it a lot, but the number 5 spot is the only time I'll do this, but I do have to like kind of throw in an honorable mention and kind of a tie because it was that close. But there was a French film called Anatomy of a Fall that was released by Neon that was just incredible. It's kind of a court procedural, but I was riveted the entire time, and it's got some incredible performances, and I expect it's going to get some awards buzz, but I decided to go with Bottoms, which is a comedy about some girls in high school that start like a fight club, like they mask it as a self-defense club. But this movie was hysterical. Like, it is completely absurd, and it just embraces the comedy, and no other movie made me laugh as much in the theater this year. No other movie made me laugh as much in the theater this year as Bottoms did. So I definitely wanted to give it a call out here. And if you haven't checked it out, it's raunchy, so don't watch it with the kids, but it's definitely worth your time.
You're our cinephile, Scotty. It's what we rely on you for.
Yeah, for real. Yeah, I'm so jealous of the how prolific you are with the movies you get to see. I really love it. And Jay, what's your number 5 for movies?
Yeah, at 5, I have Air, which is a movie about marketing around Michael Jordan. and it sounds boring, but it was very well acted, very well written. Ben Affleck and Matt Damon were the leads in this movie, and they just bring a real, like, I was wrapped up in this movie the entire time I watched it. I kind of I don't know, when I heard the premise, I was like, it sounds interesting, you know, I like sports, like, it sounds like it would be kind of cool, but I didn't really expect to like it as much as I did, and I was glued. I thought it was a great movie, and it's definitely worth checking out, especially if you're into, like, sports and things like that, and you like kind of the Ben Affleck sort of tone in the movies that he's directed in the past. It's one of his best, I think.
Air was my honorable mention. I actually moved it out of the number 5 spot for the Marvels. And if you did watch that movie and you liked it, you definitely want to read Phil Knight's memoir called Shoe Dog. It's one of my favorite books I've read this year. It's amazing.
My number 5 is an embarrassment that I don't have a number 5. I went real deep, and I have a lot of other movies I saw this year. But it's a lot of stuff that I felt like I needed to see or had to see or whatever, but I don't feel like any of them really belong on the top 5 list, and that's a real sad thing for me. Yeah, I have 4, but I'm just gonna say my number 5 is my dedication this year to be more like Jay Scotty and go see more movies, because I really did, I just didn't see that many this year. It's been busy year, but
yeah, we'll find a way to work the system. If there's ever a week that, I've got 1 or 2 of those AMC tickets left over, I'll find a way to get them to you. We'll make it work.
I got to get a fake Jay Scotty ID made.
Oh yeah, they do check the ID now.
Yeah, they check your ID.
I forgot about that.
Your own McLovin.
Okay, well, Haley, what's your number 4?
Number 4 is, I went with entertainment factor, I think, with these last 2. Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1.
That's my number 4.
If you want a popcorn chewing, high octane action Tom Cruise running movie, this is it. And I'm really still very excited for the second part whenever we get it. What is it, 2025? I'm super bummed about that still, but I think I saw it twice, which it's a pretty long movie, so super enjoyed that one.
So that's my number 4 as well, and for all the reasons you said.
Yay.
I don't have much else to say. Jay Scotty?
Yeah, it pained me to exclude Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning,
you
as
don't
we can
get to
call it
cover
now.
it with us now.
Okay.
No,
I shouldn't have said anything, but we don't have to call it Part 1 anymore, because we can just call it Dead
that's
Reckoning
right.
now. But
I can't change my ways, and I won't.
all right, number 4. Recency bias may be playing a factor here, but it is Godzilla -1. And if you listen to any of the recent cast, I've kind of talked about how much it impacted me emotionally. And this was a movie that wasn't even really on my radar, but in the weeks preceding its release, the buzz really started to build up, and it was all for really good reason. It was just, like I said, the most I've cried in a movie theater since 2017's Coco, which I never would have anticipated. If you're a Godzilla fan or just a fan of emotional stories, go check out Godzilla -1.
And Jay?
My number 4 was Across the Spider-Verse, which was
Nice.
a great theater experience and just took that franchise to another level and really opened the door for, I think, some really interesting storytelling down the line. I'm really excited about it.
That was my number 2.
Number 3 for me.
Nice. Yeah, it's just a killer outing in that whole thing, and you're right, it really did take it up to another notch. The kind of different worlds they explore with the different art styles and everything just really got me this time. Man, and just even learning about some of the technique they use to animate it, it's just so cool and so creative in a technical way, not just in a but all in service of it feeling better and being a better story, and telling the story more efficiently through every weird animation trick they had. And I just think it's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Sony really outdid Disney this year in terms of their Marvel movies, getting that reaction out of me in the theater. I think about when, spoilers, but when Donald Glover showed up in live action on screen, just the reaction that got out of me, and the way they treated Gwen Stacy's story, how she's really emerging as a protagonist right alongside Miles, I thought was really beautifully done.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, number 3, Haley, what you got?
Number 3 for me is Killers of the Flower Moon, which was
that's my number 2.
Really, really well done by Martin Scorsese. Really, I thought took the story of these real events that happened that were truly horrific and paid them the service they were due. I thought that everything was crafted beautifully. They shot it on location in Oklahoma, which they didn't have to do. And I think that that's important because that's a huge piece of the story. And I find myself just kind of thinking about it, not like every day, but on a fairly regular basis. Like I just think about the things in this movie and the things that happen in real life because it's just that, I don't know. I don't know what the right word even using to describe it is, but it affects you.
Jay Scotty.
Okay, so I am moving on to my number 2, which is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. All pause.
Well, that was my number 3 that I was about to say. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Haley kind of mentioned how The Marvels was her favorite MCU movie this year, but far and away, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 was my favorite movie. And I thought, James Gunn's return to the Marvel Cinematic Universe and just the swan song for these characters, I thought it was really well done. We got our first F-bomb in the MCU, which I thought was just a really great way for James Gunn to go out as well. And again, it was just an incredibly emotional story. We've got to learn and spend time with some of these Guardians all the way throughout this trilogy, but Rocket has always kind of been a focal point, and to really have him be the heart of this story, I thought was a great choice and really made it land really well for me.
If my expectations hadn't been so high, because Guardians of the Galaxy is like the movie that made me start the MCU cast. Like I love that movie so much, it propelled me to care about the MCU all the more from the beginning, and it's my favorite probably solo series or team series or whatever franchise in the MCU, and I love it so much. But my expectations are so high. Like it's on the list because I think it's amazing, but it didn't. I wish it was higher on my list because I really had these high expectations of it, and it didn't hit the things I really wanted it to do. It didn't affect me the way the first 2 did. It affected me in different ways, but it didn't affect me in the way what I was hungry for. But I do love it, and so it made my number 3. Okay, and I think Jay, did you have a number 3 still?
Yeah, my number 3 is Barbie. Most I laughed in a movie theater this year, and
number 1,
just like it did things that I didn't think it was gonna do. I went in thinking I was seeing something, and I walked out just seeing something completely different, and just took it in an entirely different direction than I expected it to. And I thought it was just a brilliant movie. I thought it was really well crafted, well acted, well written. And I loved it. I loved the style of it, and it was an easy top 3 for sure.
Yeah, for sure. It's my number 1, as I said, and Haley, you were holding up a number 1 as well. It was just a completely unexpected movie for this year, and not something I never would have expected last year to tell you that my number 1 movie of the year is Barbie. But it is, and it's meaningful, it's hilarious, it's surprising, and it just has everything going for it. Love that movie.
Yeah, I watched it last week when I realized it was streaming now on Max. Twice in the same evening by accident. My husband came home and he's like, "Oh, can we watch it now?" And I was like, "Of course we can. Start over," because
hey, Bobby.
I think I could watch it all the time. And America Ferrera's monologue about the impossibility of being a woman is something that will probably always bring me to tears. And as I experienced something yesterday in my professional life that made me think of it, I thought, yes, that is the most true thing that's ever been written in a movie by anybody ever.
Love that. Not that it's true, but I love that it touched you in that way.
No.
I love that standard we set for women. Okay. Jay Scotty, do you have any more?
I have my number 1. Does anybody have 2s or 3s left on the table?
I have my number 1 still
I have
left.
a 2.
Okay, Haley, take it away with you 2.
Okay, my 2 is Oppenheimer,
that's
which
my
I just
1.
thoroughly enjoyed. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's not much to say other than it was masterful on every level. Unless Jay has more to say.
No, not really. That's where I started when I was making my list. I was like, well, obviously Oppenheimer's 1. I mean, it's just, I just felt like in terms of acting and writing, and it was on a different level than anything that I personally felt like I saw this year. And it's the one that's going to stick with me the longest. So yeah, definitely one to see if you haven't seen it when you get the chance.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I feel like I committed sacrilege by not having Barbie or Oppenheimer on my list in the
Yeah,
year
what the heck,
of Barbenheimer.
Scotty?
But
Dig that hole.
it was a factor in my list that I was pretty confident that it would be brought up by my co-host. So echo all the
We're
sentiments.
basic bitches, is what Scotty's saying.
Not at all.
He's like
Not at all.
Barbenheimer.
Not at all.
Losers.
Not at all. I love and enjoy both movies thoroughly. But my number one has been my number one since I saw it. And again, this is just a film that like emotionally rocked me. It was a debut for director Celine Song, and it is A24's Past Lives starring Greta Lee. And it's basically the story of like, childhood love. They get separated when she immigrates from Korea to Canada, and they reconnect as adults after she's already entered another relationship, and just, exploring all the nuance and the complications. It's an incredibly human story, shot beautifully. And just like, even as I'm talking about it right now, I can't help but get a little bit emotional, and my voice is like kind of shaking a little bit because it's just that impactful of a film, and highly, highly recommend it. If, the pitch doesn't really sound like it would be for you, I kind of would recommend you kind of like check yourself and just check this out, because it is truly a beautiful, beautiful tale.
Past Lives. I'm gonna check it out. I need Jay Scotty. You just need to make us a list of like things we should have seen that we didn't this year. So Jay Scotty solo episode coming soon. But no, that's our top 5. It sounds like we had some Barbie, some Oppenheimer, Spider-Man, Across the Spider-Verse, Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Those are ones that we had across the board. Any that I'm missing that we kind of were in multiple.
What was your number one again, Matt?
Mine was Barbie.
Okay.
And checking in on the patrons real quick, there's a little bit of overlap. David Brewer said Super Mario Brothers at 5, Guardians of the Galaxy, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem, and then Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves. Jordan Boyd threw in Dungeons & Dragons, Nimona, Guardians 3, Godzilla -1, and then Spider-Verse. And then lastly, Niche had Guardians of the Galaxy and Barbie. So a little bit of overlap there.
Yeah. Sweet. I had forgotten that Mario was this year. This year
Yeah, I did
has
too.
been long, you guys. This year's been very, very long.
Maybe that was your number 5. I remember your review was that you were surprised how much of a kid's movie it was, but I thought you enjoyed it, right?
Was Mario this year? Wait a minute. We're talking about it, and I'm starting to hold on. I gotta.
No, it was, because I looked at Box Office Mojo
Okay, it
today,
did? Okay.
and it and Barbie are both at $1.4 billion.
Wow.
Come on, Oppenheimer.
All right, everybody. Well, I guess that's the show. I guess tell everybody where they can find you online real quick. And then we're recording this a week ahead of time, so we're about to jump right into our multiverse news that you will have heard last week. But it's because we're going to be off for Christmas. This is all timey-wimey up in here. Jay Scotty, tell them where they can find you online.
Yeah, please check out Animation Deliberation. It's the podcast that takes action, animation, and cartoons seriously, but not too seriously. And again, just want to wish everybody happy holidays, and a big thanks to our patrons for making episodes like these possible.
Absolutely. And Jay, tell them where they can find you online.
Yeah, I'm over at Commute the Podcast, where we cover 3 interesting topics in 20 minutes on Monday mornings. We do not have a new episode this week during Christmas, but we'll be back right after the holidays.
Sweet. And Haley Hobbs.
I'm on Source Pages, where we read comics and novels as primers for all the geeky TV shows and movies we love.
Love it. And I'm on the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast. Check that out. We're going to be doing daily episodes. If you're listening to this, we've already been doing them for a number of days leading up to doing all the What If episodes as they drop. So come check us out on the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast. And we'll be back here on Multiverse News next week. Thank you so much for joining us. We love you. Peace.
You stay classy, Multiverse.